know how it came about. It was there in the first place. And the Alexandrian text, when it was put in place, it was the recension, not the received text. And then, of course, they claimed that they didn't have to prove anything. They said, we don't care what you think. We don't have to prove anything. They claimed it was up to anybody who didn't agree with them, their opponents, to prove that they were wrong. Now, they thought that their position was unassailable, as they presumed that Aleph and B, right, Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, were the oldest manuscripts that would ever be extant. Of course, they were wrong, as we know now. We now have ancient papyri manuscripts that clearly show the existence of the majority-type textual readings before Aleph and B, which would be impossible if their theory was correct. Right, Westcott and Hort understood that they had a real advantage with this theory. It was a very carefully thought out hoax. Right, even if it ever was proved wrong, this would take many years to do, and in the meantime their text would be accepted, copyrighted, published and sold, and they would have achieved their purpose of creating a recension of their own. Of course, Westcott and Hort did succeed in this endeavour, much to the delight and the financial gain of many scholars and publishing companies, and all sorts of people have made millions and billions out of it. But their textual theory still stands or falls on the historical evidence for the Lucian recension. Over 100 years have now passed since Westcott and Hort postulated this theory. The scholars who support Westcott and Hort's textual theory have avidly sought for historical evidence for the Lucian recension, in much the same way as evolutionists have frantically searched for the elusive missing link between man and the primates. Those who oppose Westcott and Hort's textual theory have also systematically and carefully and objectively sifted all the available historical evidence. By Westcott and Hort's own admission, for this recension to have happened on such a wide scale, it would have had to be ecclesiastically sanctioned. This means it had to be empire-wide, right? Westcott and Hort also admitted, because it was so comprehensive, it would have taken at least 100 years to be completed. They placed this 100-year period between AD 250 and 350. Now, do we have any evidence at all from this period of history? Yes, indeed we do. Unbelievable amounts of it. Many thousands of writings, documents, histories, letters, quotations of church fathers, etc. There is no shortage of information in the general sense from this time period. In fact, it's absolutely abundant. What evidence, then, do we have to support this theory of a Lucian recension after 100 years of careful searching? We do not have even one shred of historical evidence for this Lucian recension from any source at all. Now, I'll tell you an interesting personal thing for me. When I heard about the Lucian recension, I was on the other side of the fence. I was using the new versions and I thought they were right and better. And I said, this is something I can check into. And I spent 17 years searching for evidence, historical evidence for the Lucian recension. And I wrote to people and I delved into stuff everywhere I could find it and found nothing. And after 17 years, an old bloke I was talking to said to me, "Look, Robert, has it ever occurred to you that there's no evidence because there was no recension?" And I said, "No, it's never occurred to me. There had to be a recension, otherwise how would we have the majority text?" And he said it was there all the time. And it all just clicked together and I said, "Oh, well, That must be why I found no evidence. So then I started looking at it another way altogether, and I understood that there is no evidence. Nobody has ever presented any evidence for the Lucian recension, historical evidence, in writing that I know anywhere in the world. Now, if it was right throughout the empire, and it took 100 years and the whole church backed it, there should be reams of information on it, and there's nothing. In fact, despite the ever more frantic searching of the proponents of Westcott and Hort's textual theory, it is now universally accepted that the Lucian recension never happened and is only a figment of the imaginations of Westcott and Hort and their disciples. Because this is now accepted as fact, many scholars are now abandoning Westcott and Hort's textual theory and understanding the real authority of the old majority text. This is causing a move back towards the readings of the Textus Receptus. In fact, the Nestle UBS Greek interlinear has changed back to the Textus Receptus readings in well over 1,000 variants in the last 40 years. So they're finding out that in fact, when they do their study, Textus Receptus had it right, Westcott and Hort had it wrong. We also now have the new majority text put together by Hodges and Farstead, which has moved from the Westcott and Hort Greek textual critical text and toward the TR in more than 3,000 instances. And so there's a move back. Given time, it seems clear that most scholars of the future will find themselves much more free to assess the textual evidence on its true merits rather than being shackled by the Westcott and Hort textual theory. As this is happening, we are already seeing many TR readings, which Westcott and Hort abandoned, being vindicated and reinstated. And even in the modern translations, they're going back to a lot of the TR readings. We are sure to see much more of this in the future as people really study it and really understand Westcott and Hort have lied. They gradually are heading back. We can be totally confident that the TR will remain as the solid foundation on which we can confidently base our English translation. The modern translation will run their courses and finally disappear once they get out of copyright, but we can be sure our children and our children's children will still have the KJV in its present form available to them. We'll leave that there for the moment.